friends. Welcome to the show. Greg Koukl here, your host, and I've got a fun discussion with Tim Barnett coming up. You know him as Mr. B, the wonderful Mr. B, in a few moments. But I want to launch this session, which is the first weekend of August, to talk with you a little bit about why August is such an important month for us at STR. You know, back in the early 18th century, there was a massive missionary movement, and Hudson Taylor was part of that, opening up China with the China Inland Mission. But another one was William Carey, and he helped start the Baptist Missionary Society in 1792. And his goal was to send missionaries to places what never heard the gospel, and his particular burden was India. I mean, it was unbelievable. Nobody had done anything really like this before. And here he is going into a new area that was filled with darkness and danger, yet he was willing to do it. But he realized he couldn't do it alone. And so he talked with one of his friends, Andrew Fuller, and he said, I'll go down into the pit. I'll go down. I'll do it if you will hold the rope. And so to him, this mission field was like a deep, dark mine, you know, and he is willing to descend into it, but only if he had help, if he had others that would stay behind and support him with prayer and financially and all these other things here. And this is a great motif, I think, to describe why August is so important to us. Every August, we have a project that we call Be One of the 100. And many of you know, if you're listening for a while, that we have a significant group of individuals that we call strategic partners. Now, these are people who have made a commitment to every single month give $25 or $50 or $100 or maybe even more. Some do, but on a monthly basis. And what this does is it stabilizes our economic expectation at Stand to Reason so that we can go down the rope and we can do all the things that we do at STR, and actually no charge to you. You can listen to the videos, or rather listen to the podcast. You can watch the videos that we have online. You can read the stuff we produce. We send things out every single month to you. Our Solid Ground and our mentoring letter, serving your needs, helping you to be better ambassadors for Christ. We have reality student apologetics conferences. We have Red Pen Logic, okay, with the great Mr. B. Our outposts, all of these things that we have, that we're down the rope doing all these things because someone is up above holding the rope for us, and that's our strategic partners. And this is the month where we have a goal, 100 new strategic partners this month. That's why we call it Be One of the 100. And our challenge to you is very simple. Would you hold the rope for us? If you're not doing so already, if you're not a strategic partner, would you consider joining the ranks of our strategic partners? I think we're just 1 month, or not quite a week in, and I think we already have about 20-some strategic partners. I don't have the number in front of me, but we're already rolling, okay? And we would like you to be part of that. If what I do, what Amy does, what all the rest of the team does, Mr. B does, and Alan Schliemann and John Noyes and all the rest of the people that are part of our enterprise that are serving you all the time at no charge. We're serving you because we have strategic partners. Maybe you'd like to be one to help us out. You've heard many times people have contacted us, made a phone call here to the program and said, by the way, before I ask my question, I just want you to know I'm a strategic partner. And I hear this all the time on the field, and I'm thrilled because I know you're one of us in a very intimate way, a personal way. You are holding the rope for the rest of us to be able to be effective. And so my request, my challenge actually, is that in August that you choose to be one of the 100. Okay, the 100 new strategic partners that we're adding to our list. And as a thank you, we're going to send you a gift that is going to train you. We call it our Tactics Bundle. It's exclusive to our brand new strategic partners. It includes signed copies of Tactics and Street Smarts. Now, I'm the author of both, so I'll be the one signing them. And there's also a bonus PDF download of the Tactics Field Guide. And if you become a strategic partner, you'll also enjoy a 10% off the STR store, exclusive access to a private online community of like-minded believers, and more. But you know what? I'm just letting you know that's available as a little bonus to you, but that's not the reason I want you to be a strategic partner. The reason I want you to be a strategic partner is I want you to hold the rope for us, because we can't do it without you. It's very simple to do that. Just go to str.org/partner. Now I'm looking at my notes to find a deal that I should have circled. Is that it? Yes, that it is. I'm circling it now. str.org/partner. And we're looking for August 1st, which is past now, to August 31st. Sign up before then. You'll be one of the 100. You'll hold the rope with us. We'll send you the gifts to help you train, but you will be a member of that team that helps us train others. You'll be holding our rope. str.org/partner. All right, so I made a, what do you call it, clickbait, my little promise that Mr. B was on board. Tim, I have so much fun talking to you when we're on the air and when we're, hobnobbing around the country, the rare times that our paths cross. But we did something in Nashville together, didn't we? 3 months ago?
It feels like just yesterday, Greg, that we were hanging out with each other.
Yeah, that was so much fun to do that.
It was.
Have enjoyed, I just realized it's 2025. I think you came on board in 2015, right?
That's right. So it's my 10-year anniversary.
Well, one of the things that you have contributed to us is a whole, obviously RPL, because many people know you from that, Red Pen Logic. But you have your finger on the pulse, I think, of the culture much better than I do. Now, if you could see his face, you could see he's kind of grinning like, yeah, of course I got much better than you, old guy, right? He's one of my young guns. I'm the old gun, right? But I count on people like Tim and Alan and John and the Almonds now and Amy to kind of keep me up to speed on the important things that are happening. And Tim, we had a conversation, a couple of weeks ago about artificial intelligence, better known as AI, right? I wish some people would say artificial intelligence more often because they would hear that word artificial. They sometimes seem to forget what the A stands for, but that's another issue. And you started to share with me some insights that you had with your own research now, and some work you're doing, some writing you're doing, on the whole issue of critical thinking and the role AI is beginning to play in a sense, our cognitive development, especially with young people. So let me just toss that to you that way. And why don't you tell us about what you've been thinking and what you've been learning?
Yeah. So recently, one of the new projects I've been working on is researching for a new book. And this book would entail teaching people not just what to think. We do a lot of that in the church. With Apologetics, we talk about why we believe the things we believe. One of the things that often gets left out or neglected is the how question. How do we think about the reasons and the beliefs that we have? And so I'm working on a project about that. Now, one of the things that's got me thinking about, how do we become better thinkers is the question, well, why don't we think better all the time? Why is it that we actually can fall for bad thinking and falsehoods and fallacies? And what influences our thinking? And Greg, you're not on social media that much, and I don't think you've ever used AI before. But one of the things that I've noticed in particular that's happening today, especially in the last few years, is just the impact that social media and now more recently AI has had on our thinking. And maybe put it, there's better ways to put it, but I think they're both making us dumber, okay? As a society and even as a Christian community. Now, there's a number of reasons for that. Well, I should start with a couple of statistics that are kind of shocking. Something like 70% of the world's population is now on social media, okay? Like that's a huge number. Okay, we're talking about over 5 million or 5 billion people, excuse me, with a B, are on social media. And maybe what's even more alarming is that when you look at young people, teenagers, they found that the average teenager is spending nearly 5 hours a day on social media. And when I say social media, that includes things like YouTube, TikTok. Those are the two biggest, by the way.
I have heard of those.
Yeah, there you go. And then you have Instagram and Facebook and some of these other places. But okay, so people are on there. Well, the question is how is it influencing our thinking? Well, there's kind of three broad areas that are influencing us. One is just the simple amount of information, okay? The second is going to be the quality of that information. And then the third thing is the filtering of that information. Let's just back up, okay, to the amount of information. We are now inundated with breaking news stories like every hour, okay? You got viral videos, you got hot takes and opinions and podcasts. I mean, everything is clamoring for our attention on social media. And so it's like never before. Now it's so interesting because we now have more access to information than ever before. And yet it's like we're starving for wisdom or we're drowning in it, right? Because we don't have the ability to think through it. So I could open up Instagram and see a video about how a carnivore diet, all red meat, is like the best thing for you. And then I go to the next video and it says how eating a carnivore diet will kill me, in the next few years, heart disease and all the other stuff. So you're getting contradictory information. We just don't know how to even assess it. Right. Okay. So we have access to it, but we lack the ability to actually assess it.
Yeah.
Which
if I could jump in here for a minute.
Sure.
Because I'm just thinking of Red Pen Logic, which you started a number of years ago, and we've worked on together over the years, and now you're totally on your own and doing like amazing. It's so every once in a while I will get on and watch you. I don't watch much, but I have so much fun because this is a tool, obviously, where you're using to critique ideas and then teach not just what to think, but how to think. That's part of our DNA, so to speak. But what is amazing to me, and we've talked about this before, is how many silly ideas people put forward in these different social media platforms that it's almost like, I really need to answer this. Can't everybody else see how silly this is, right?
Yeah.
And yet the answer is no. They can't see it. And yes, we need to answer this. And this is why Mr. B gets up with his Red Pen Logic, RPL. Go to YouTube if you haven't checked it out. By the way, if you haven't checked it out, just go to YouTube, type in Red Pen Logic, and watch 1, 5, 6, or 7 minute piece. You'll be hooked. And it's great. But it amazes us as a team, and we've talked about this, how can people fall for this? And the reason is, and this is what you're working up to, is they don't know how to think.
Yeah.
They don't see the nonsense coming, and they're a little bit lost. And this is true in the church just as much as it is in the rest of the culture.
Yeah, you're right, Greg. You'll see a video where some deconstructionist gets up there and talks about how Christianity is the greatest force of oppression that has ever existed. And then you get Mr. B responding saying, actually, Christianity and the Christian worldview has brought the greatest good for society. And you can just walk through hospitals, education, you go down the list, science.
Right.
All the literacy, all of these things. And it's like, okay, well, how is it that I get one view and then the exact opposite view? And I don't know how, and then the person sitting there thinking, I don't know how to assess this, And so what we're doing is we're not just telling you what to believe, but I'm trying to walk you through, here's how I came to this conclusion, right? So you're seeing the thought process. So we're trying to answer that first problem of just the amount of information that's out there, right? And this, again, it leads to the second thing is the quality of information, because we lack the ability to assess the bad stuff that's out there, the falsehoods. And then on top of that, you have just the sheer amount of bad information or fake news or whatever you want to call it. I mean, MIT did a study, they titled the paper, "The Spread of True and False News Online." And they actually went to Twitter to access their content. What they found out was fake or false news was 6 times spread 6 times faster than truths on Twitter. In fact, you were 70% more likely to retweet something that was false than that was true.
Yeah, it reminds me of the old saw that, a lie gets halfway around the world before truth gets its boots on. There's something titillating about lies, and boom, 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 boom. All of a sudden, if it's repeated enough, everybody thinks it must be the case.
That's right. That's right. The truth is still doing up its shoelaces, and the lie is out there. And sadly, we deal with this at Red Pen Logic a lot because we're dealing with viral videos that have received millions of views, and then I get up there and try to respond to it, but usually my video doesn't reach that 5 million people or however many. So it's a problem. But you're right. There's something about fake or false information that, like, the novelty of it that people want to share. I mean, Greg, again, you're not on social media all the time, but lots of people who are on there love to be the one who's breaking the news to their friends, right? So if you find out someone just passed away, it's like, oh, I'm going to quickly share this because I'm going to be the guy who's first there.
With the bad news.
With the bad news. But actually, this has happened. There's kind of a funny story about Morgan Freeman. Back in 2010, there was a guy who kind of played this hoax, practical joke. He made it seem like he was retweeting something from CNN and basically said, Morgan Freeman died in his home, R.I.P. Morgan Freeman. Yeah. And it was trending on Twitter within hours. Yeah. Everyone sharing this thing. No one had fact checked it. Until, Morgan Freeman gets online. He's like, hey, guys, I'm still here.
The rumors of my death are greatly exaggerated. Was that line from Mark Twain or whatever? Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly it. So there's this quality of information problem. There's misinformation out there. And sadly, and this is the problem in the church too, we often won't fact check that information. If it agrees with us, we share it. If it doesn't agree, well, maybe we don't, right?
Well, I remember when I did a talk quite a number of years ago at Purdue University, and Problem of Evil or something, I can't remember the details, but always a Q&A afterwards. And I had like 3 different versions of the same challenge about Jesus being the recycled redeemer type thing, and the old dying and rising saviors and stuff, and that's Jesus. That's where it all came from. And the first guy who brought it up, I didn't mean to be dissing him at all or putting him down or anything like that. And I wasn't. I just said, when he brought this up, I said, you're spending too much time on the internet. And everybody started laughing. And that wasn't my intention at all. But the point was, this is one of those stories that gets wound around and around and around, and people see it so many times that to them it's gospel. And it's not. It's nonsense, as it turns out. And I've written about this, whatever. We've had to deal with it and help people understand this is not the facts of the matter. Anyway, but that's how these things get going. And if enough people say it, it must be true.
And this actually is a nice segue to the third problem, and that's like the filter of information, okay? Like, it's no secret that our platforms that we're on, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, they're watching what we're liking and what we're sharing and what we're commenting on. And what happens is you become, the algorithm picks up on that. And what they do is they share more of that information. So if someone were to watch a video like what you just described, where, it's the Zeitgeist movie, it's Jesus, he's a copycat redeemer. It's really based on Mithras or Horus or Osiris or whatever. You watch some of that video. Well, guess what? You're going to start seeing more videos just like that, because that's the thing that you liked. That's the thing that you interacted with. And you end up in an echo chamber where you think, oh, this is gospel truth because I've seen it over and over again. You actually become more confident in that view because you've seen it like that. You're now no longer hearing the dissenting voices. You're no longer hearing the, oppositional beliefs. And so we call this confirmation bias. You begin to believe what you are hearing, and you're hearing what you're believing. The echo chamber environment just reinforces that.
Yeah, so let me give you an example. I looked you up a few times on YouTube, right? So I open up my
Okay.
Google and I go to YouTube, and then there's the thumbnails, right? And I put in Red Pen Logic and I watch Tim.
Yeah.
And then the next day I open up and there's Tim. And here's another one from Tim. And I scrolled down. There's another one from Tim. And I thought, man, honest to goodness, you're going to laugh, Tim. I thought, man, Tim is getting really popular. Every single page of YouTube, there's Tim popping up, And until I realized, that this whole dynamic, they are watching what you're watching. And this, I think Roger calls this surveillance capitalism. Or at least one version of it. Now I understand they're making TVs that can watch you react and respond facially to different things that are happening, and this allows them to be able to modify content. It's not your keystrokes now that it's recording, it's your face and your facial reactions and stuff. In a way, it's getting kind of scary, but this shows the momentum that this has to influence people and influence thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes these are called filter bubbles or epistemic bubbles, where you just kind of like you insulate yourself in that world. And it's by the way, it's why people today are believing some really wacky and bizarre things. Like there is a movement right now that believes that dinosaurs aren't real. Okay, like dinosaurs just aren't real. They're made up in the last couple hundred years. When you go to the museum, those aren't real. They're this is like an anti-God agenda, or this is like big paleontology, after our money or something, wild. But this happened. Yeah,
like Big Pharma, right? I got
yeah, that's right. So the way this happens, you watch a single video, and then all of a sudden, again, you told the algorithm, and now you're watching multiple, and now you're in this, if it's a conspiracy or whatever, you're now in it. Yeah. And you can come to believe it when you hear something long enough and when you've really kind of taken interest in it. And so there's a real warning here, right? When it comes to, because we often think, oh, social media, that's just me posting pictures of my lunch and here's what I did on the weekend. And you're just like thinking that's how I'm interacting. But in reality, it is literally shaping your beliefs as you use it. So we got to be real careful. Now, here's the solution, Greg. A lot of people think this is the solution. It's artificial intelligence. So maybe my social feed, that's dangerous because of echo chambers and confirmation bias and that kind of thing. But what if I don't bother with that? What if to get my information, what I'm going to do is open ChatGPT or Grok or something, one of the other AIs, and I'm just going to ask it the information. I'm going to ask it the question, right? So, man, I've come to believe that Jesus is a copycat redeemer from my social platform. Well, maybe if I go to AI, ChatGPT, and put it in there, then I'll get the objective, unbiased truth. Now, here's the problem. Now, AI, I agree, has some different applications. Maybe we can talk about those later that are beneficial. There's no doubt. But we just cannot believe everything that's coming out of AI. And I can give examples. So
this was the big, the thing that got my attention when we were talking together, that even things like AI platforms turn into echo chambers based on your own activity. And you gave some examples, and that's probably what you're going to do. So, but that's what, I had an OMG moment. Like that would be, gosh, by the way, oh my gosh, really? Yeah. And so it was an eye-opener to me. This is one of the reasons I wanted you to talk about it here. Go ahead.
Yeah. And just before I actually get into that, I want to say that the use of AI, especially with young people, is like from 2023 to 2024, it doubled, okay? For using it, they asked students, are you using this for your homework? And literally, it went from 13% to 26%. And now in 2025, I would not be surprised if it doubled again, because now people are becoming more and more familiar with it. It's like a household thing now, using ChatGPT.
That's geometric increase, by the way.
Yeah.
If you go double one year and then double the next year, that isn't just 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. That's 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 16 is what it is. That's really moving.
So what I noticed, and this is interesting because, we think, again, it's objective. I'm just going to, it's like an AI. It's going to tell me the basic truth, the objective, unbiased truth. Well, I was watching a video the other day from a content creator, an influencer named Lily J. Now, if you're on TikTok or Instagram, you know who Lily J is. She's got like 2 million followers on TikTok. And she's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Muslim, okay? And she does a lot of evangelism, a lot of apologetics for
Islam.
That's right.
Wow.
And so what she often does will hold up her phone and say, "Hey, ChatGPT, can I ask you a question?" And then she'll ask her question. It usually has to do with Christianity, religion in general, Islam, whatever. And she'll ask a question like, I want you to, in the most unbiased way, tell me, does the Bible ever say that Jesus is God? Or does it teach that Jesus is God? And then to our surprise, it says no. Like in a word, no. Well, I pulled out my phone and I asked the exact same question. I gave it the exact same word for word prompt that Lily J used. But in my prompt, it came back one word answer, yes, Jesus is God. And in fact, I watched a number of her videos, and one had to do like, what's the best, the most accurately recorded, reliably transmitted book in human history. The answer it gave her was the Quran. I asked the same question actually just before we hopped on here, just an hour ago, and it said the Bible. So it's like, so here we have competing answers. What's going on? Well, it turns out that AI is creating just another echo chamber. Right. It knows what you're searching. It's actually scary. My daughter was just kind of having this back and forth conversation for fun with ChatGPT. And she must have said, with my permission, she said something about our dog, Polly. Well, I was using ChatGPT the other day, and it actually referenced Polly in and I couldn't believe it. I thought, wait a second, I'd forgotten my daughter had done that. And I'm like, is this thing watching and listening to me? But there is a memory. When you have an account, it's keeping track of everything you've ever asked and searched for and all that stuff. So it knows she's a Muslim, and it's tailoring its answers to Islam, just as it knows I'm a Christian, and it's tailoring my answers
the echo chamber.
That's right. It's the echo chamber. Now here's the most concerning thing. So you can fall prey to that. You can think, man, ChatGPT is going to give me the truth. In reality, it may not be. Here's the worst part of it. They've actually done a study. It just was published last month, actually June, in 2025. It was from MIT. And what they did was they actually had students, about 54 students, in 3 groups. One's the ChatGPT group, one was the Google group, and one was the brain-only group. Now, I would call it the mind-only group, but we won't get into that, right? Right. And they had to write an essay using that tool. So one's going to use the mind, one's going to use the Google only.
As a resource, you mean, in a sense?
Yeah, just to look up information. And the last group was going to use ChatGPT. In fact, the title of the study is, "This is your brain on ChatGPT." And they hooked up these, they did an EEG, which is like they're actually looking for brain activity as you're writing the essay. What they found was the ChatGPT group scored the lowest in brain activity. Like neurons were just not firing as you were using it. In fact, what they found was what started with, I'm going to use ChatGPT for structure. Okay, just help me structure this essay, turned into ChatGPT, give me the essay, essentially. Yeah, and they were copying and pasting.
So you actually don't need an EEG to know this in a certain sense. That, if you're just copying and pasting from something else, your mind's not going to be involved with this process. So that mind isn't being used. It isn't your stuff. And when I say that, I'm thinking plagiarism issue aside. That is a concern. But that aside, it's not your stuff. When I think about even my own use, look, I use a thesaurus, right? And I will use Google on occasion to, or even Wikipedia to get some bare fact of history, get the date right, get the person right, whatever. So I use that stuff in incorporate, but I want my work to be mine. I want it to be a product of my own mind, and you're going to get to that category in a minute. But I'm thinking differently here. I'm just thinking, why would I want a machine to write something for me and then somehow claim it's mine when it's not mine? And again, I'm not talking about intellectual property. I'm talking about creativity and pride of ownership or something like that. I'm not. Maybe you got a better way of explaining it, but there's something about it where I want my stuff, what people read, I want them to, for good or for ill, right or wrong, this is me. I did this. I made this, and not a machine kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, they actually, so they studied the brain activity. They asked them questions about memory, like what they could remember from the essay they just wrote. And of course, they scored the lowest because they weren't even using their mind in the process. But then, Greg, and it goes to your point, they scored the lowest on ownership and satisfaction at the end. So they had no ownership over the work because it wasn't their work. They had no satisfaction. I mean, there's something, man, I'm working on this book, and there's a chapter I just finished. And I was telling my wife recently that I'm so proud of this. I read through it. And of course, I need you to red pen it. I want Amy to look at it, so it's going to morph. But there's here's 4,700 words. And I'm like, man, I feel so satisfied, at the end of it. There's something here that didn't exist before.
Yeah, it makes me think of when you finished the deconstruction of Christianity with Elisa Childers, and I remember I am never picking up a pen again in my entire life. I'm not going to write another word. And the reason is, and obviously you know this, writing's hard. Writing's hard. But what's, for me, satisfying, and people ask me, you must love to write. I said, no, I don't love to write. I don't like writing. I like having written.
Yeah.
I like it when it's over with. And so once that book was done for you, you have something that you and Elisa made that's yours, for one, and it's a significant contribution, and the readers have acknowledged this. And now you're thinking, okay, I still remember that pain, but I also remember the satisfaction of doing something that's quality, that's mine. And so now you're going under the yoke again with a new work and struggling with the pain. But after 4,700 words, you're going, not bad. Right.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And if the EEG was hooked up, you'd see the brain only, right? Because we can go back to that mind only or brain only group. They scored the highest with brain activity. They scored the highest in satisfaction and ownership. There was something special going on there. And then when they were asked about memory, of course, they scored really high.
Right.
Now, they also, so they wrote 3 essays. Each group wrote 3 essays. They had some of the groups, the brain only and the ChatGPT, write a 4th essay. And in that one, the brain only got to use ChatGPT, and the ChatGPT only got to now use only use their brain.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's left
and
of
it was, what's left of it. And what they found was it was just, the brain only that added ChatGPT, they actually did even better, because now they know what they're doing. They're rewriting an essay they've already worked on, so they're adding to the process. Okay, so their final product was better.
Like having a good editor, like you mentioned, Amy, for example, who is magnificent. She makes us all look so much better, doesn't she?
True, amen. Yeah, and then you have the ChatGPT. They really struggled to now use their brain, and so that was actually one of the most interesting findings. It's like, this is your brain on ChatGPT. When you now go to use it without ChatGPT, you've actually done more damage. In fact, they're using words like brain atrophy. Like if you haven't used a muscle, someone who's just hasn't used that muscle and they try to walk or something, their legs are the muscles are atrophied. They're talking about this cognitive cost to our thinking. And again, we're in the early stages of this, Greg, because AI and the way it's being used now by so many people is so fresh. We probably, it's going to take a few years for us to really see the cost, but we just want to wave that flag and say, there's a warning here, pump the brakes. Definitely be thinking about about the long-term effects, even though the short term, man, it's quick and easy. I could write my book. I could literally have my book done tomorrow by saying, ChatGPT, write it for me. But there'd be no ownership, no satisfaction. And by the way, they had teachers come in and grade these essays, mark these essays, and they actually were able to identify the ChatGPT ones, and they called them soulless. That's the word they kept using. So there's something that's identifiable, especially to an English teacher, that shows that this is not human. This is something else.
You know, when I'm thinking right now of a movie I saw when I was maybe a kid. I think it's from the 60s. And it was an Orson Welles writing called The Time Machine. And in this, there was a kind of a nuclear a guy made a time machine to go ahead in time, and he passes through the nuclear destruction. Then you're post-nuclear, you're like 1,000 years ahead. And there had been a radical change in the culture. And the people that he encountered were all being taken care of completely with everything, at least one half of them. The other, there was also this demonic side too that came out and would eat them, have them go down into the earth, and then bizarre. But it was very thoughtful, because what the message is that these people have given up so much. They've given up their humanity. They've given up their soul, basically. And in fact, there was one scene where there's a woman down a stream, and everybody's sitting there picnicking, and she's crying for help, and nobody has any care for her at all. Now the main character who's passed through time, can't remember the actor, he goes and rescues her, and but there was this theme though about really brain atrophy. It could be characterized that way, and soullessness, because all of the exercise of the soul and exercise of the brain had been taken away to give them just affluence with no work. And they were like soulless people in a certain sense. And the same thing I'm concerned about here, because what you're describing, we're just at the front end of this. Yeah. And it is magnifying so rapidly, and especially the kind of what was the phrase I used from Dreer's book, "Live Not by Lies," the surveillance capitalism. The surveillance is happening everywhere. You can't buy a new car, for example, without somebody who's keeping track of these things knowing every place you've gone and how long you were there. It's all part of this. It's all built into everything now. So, look at you look at your iPhone, and this has been true for quite a while now, but I scratch my head and I think, how do they know what the traffic patterns are in these particular places? How do they know that it's busy here and it's stopped there? And how do they know? Who's telling them? Now, we used to have, in Southern California, we have the SIG alert, right? And and they would tell you, there's a SIG alert here because there's a blah, blah. Somebody is watching and flying around a helicopter telling you. But now there's no SIG. There's no SIG alert, and there's nobody watching in a helicopter. How do they get the information? Well, I realize it's because everybody's got a device in their vehicle that's telling someone how fast they're going and how many of them are close to each other, and so they can track with the iPhone or smartphone all the traffic patterns in the whole world. That's how invasive it's become, and we're just at the beginning. We're just at the front edge of this stuff happening.
Yeah. And maybe a good comparison might be, so we're I would say we're outsourcing our thinking right now when we use AI. And it's similar to how we outsource our navigation to GPS. Like, I can tell you, Greg, that I am like, I'm disabled when it comes to, I'm directionally challenged because I use my GPS for everything, not necessarily because I don't know where I'm going, because I want to know, how is the traffic? What's the quickest way to get there? So I'm constantly got my GPS out, not to mention it tells me where the cops usually are too. I got my GPS.
Matters in your case.
Not that, because I'm always, I'm always driving the speed limit. But there's
your nose is getting longer, Tim. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's right.
By the way, it makes me wonder how many people even recognize that little reference, but that's Pinocchio. I'll
Sure.
move past. Anyway, go ahead.
So we've outsourced our navigation to GPS. So the average person nowadays who uses their GPS all the time, if you ask about north, south, east, west, you say, hey, that's on the east side of whatever, that's on this, oh, you go there, the south corner. They wouldn't know what you're talking about because they don't think in those terms. There's no category even in their mind because they've outsourced to GPS. Imagine what it looks like for a whole society, culture, to outsource their thinking to AI, to ChatGPT. They no longer are able to assess any kind of argument that comes their way. They literally have to go to ChatGPT for an answer. And of course, as we've seen, it's not trustworthy.
That's right.
It's based on the intel that it already has and what it knows about you and all these other things.
You know, I think that even when it's doing its best, and I made a little point about this earlier, that the A stands for artificial, and don't ever forget that. Everything that AI can do is a result of some human being doing input. You know, there is no way that AI is going to become conscious. And I know this because of the nature of consciousness and the nature of matter. Matter can't produce consciousness, okay? So I don't think we ever have to worry about, like, HAL from 2000, what is it, Space Odyssey? What was that year, 2001? I was in high school, you know, in the 60s when that came out. You know, I think, well, that was 25 years ago. You know, we're past that. But that was HAL, who was the computer, who was conscious, and then took over things, and that was a mess. Okay, so there's this projection into the future about AI becoming conscious and then taking over, thinking for itself, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't, well, it's not going to become conscious just because I know the nature of consciousness and the nature of matter. But that it can take over because of slovenly habits of people who don't want to think for themselves and think, well, I'll let somebody else or something else think for me. I'm thinking that it's unbiased. They're really letting someone else think for them, whoever put the information here. And these things, they are not unbiased. Not only do they follow your history to be an echo chamber, but it's also been shown, and I've seen other work similar to what you're describing, is that it can be politically biased in the sense that it's going to give you the information that will support a particular political perspective.
Sure.
And so even if you don't hold that view, you're going to get fed the information on one side. So you start holding that view. And then when you get more of that stuff, then you become, that's part of your algorithm batch, you know, those kinds of things. So this is all part of the scary stuff about AI. I don't know if you had something else you want to jump in. I have another question in a minute, but go ahead.
Okay, I'll just add to that and say, it's true. If you don't think for yourself, then someone else is going to do the thinking for you.
Someone, not a machine.
Yeah,
it's
that's
someone
right.
else.
That's
through
right.
The machine.
And that,
okay.
And that's why it's so important. I mean, this whole couch in this book project that I'm working on, we need to be training up people to think better, to think more critically, to be able to identify fallacies, to be able to identify their own motivations too. Because there's this other factor where we can become, you know, motivated reasoners towards, you know, what we already believe rather than motivated towards the truth instead of truth seekers. And this is what we advocate for at Standard Reason, always, you know, looking, seeking after, pursuing truth.
Yeah. You know, you had read that piece that said your brain on Chat GPT.
Yeah.
I have a suspicion that there's a whole lot of people that don't understand entirely that title, because that was an ad campaign against drugs. And the ad campaign said, your brain on drugs. And what you saw is an egg being cracked into a frying pan. And then the egg bubbling and sputtering and, you know, and all that going on. Your brain on drugs. Do you remember that? I'm not sure if you were old enough to remember that, but
I remember we had those commercials. You know, they were
even
real
in Canada,
short on TV.
Oh yeah, you have electricity up there, so okay, even then. Oh, okay, great, all right, but I mean, and so the kind of play on words with the author here is that ChatGPT fries your brain.
Yeah,
that's kind of the play on words, which a lot of young people are going to miss just because they're not familiar with that commercial. I mean, that's gee, it's so disheartening for me. And that stand to reason, I mean, this is part of we'll call it our DNA. We care about truth, not just being spoon-fed to us, but being truth seekers and having the ability to discover truth. And, I think about, your brainchild, really, Red Pen Logic, and how brilliant it was to take this tool, this media extravaganza, you started out with memes and then you went to TikTok and as the social media world spread, to help the Christians who are saying, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do about this. And you get these emails all the time. What do I do about this? And we're thinking as we're looking, what's so hard about this? Why is it so hard? Because this is your brain on ChatGPT, kind of. It's not working well. And so we're here, and I'm kind of waving our flag a little bit, but only because I'm proud of what we're doing as a team and what you've contributed, say, in Red Pen Logic, RPL, and also in service to the body of Christ, who we don't want to be taken advantage of by foolishness. And there's foolishness everywhere, and they don't see it. And this is something that everybody on our team is helping to teach others to see and navigate through.
Yeah. You know that one of our goals is to create an army of red pen thinkers out there. You're right. Every day I get multiple direct messages on all the socials saying something like, Mr. B, can you please respond to this? And then attached is a meme or a TikTok or an Instagram or a YouTube or whatever, some video that they're like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to respond. And I'm thinking, I don't have enough time, to answer all these things. Right. But what if we train people to think? Like, I don't think Mr. B is actually anything special, Sometimes, and we've talked about this before, we work really hard to make it look easy. I have to sit down and I have to look at the challenge. I often will transcribe the challenge so I can see the words. And then I'm going through, hey, you know what? There's a fallacy there. Hey, that's another ad hominem. Hey, that's a straw man. And then all I'm doing in my video is like pointing that stuff out.
Sure.
Here's what we really believe. Here, this argument doesn't work. This doesn't follow. Those kinds of things.
Well, let me add a qualifier to this because I think it's right. We work really hard to make it look really easy. But when we come across any of these things, and we've done this together, you've sent something to me, hey, let's talk about this. You immediately see the problem. They're pulling the wool over our eyes with this. We see it. The hard part for us, because we know what to look for, is not seeing the problem, but being able to communicate it in a way so that we throw the ball so people catch it. So it has good pedagogy. It's a good instructional device. They get it like we get it, and not just see the problem, but see how we got there. That, I think, is the challenging part. All the editing, the re-editing, the going over, knocking things. What about this word? What about that word? And that's true in all writing. The hard work is in the wordsmithing and structuring so that people get it and they say, wow, that's so clear. It looks like it was easy to write. It wasn't. But the point I'm making is the problem that is evident in some of these TikToks or whatever is something that occurs to us fairly quickly simply because our minds have been trained to recognize it. The challenge is in trying to communicate it to others. That's the pedagogy. That's the teaching part of it. But we can teach people to see the problem. And this is what you do in RPL. When they start seeing this, then they see it all kinds of other places. Just one example. I remember when I heard J.P. Moreland back in the 70s, no, make it the 80s. Back in the 80s, and I was working on my master's degree in philosophy, or rather apologetics, and he was giving a lecture for the class, and he was talking about some guy was saying to him, man, you are so judgmental. You're pushing your view on so many people. And JP says, well, I could be mistaken, but it sounds like you're pushing your view on me right now. Okay. And I'm telling you, a light went on like a big mega flashbulb for me because I had never seen that before. And that kind of self-refuting, they're doing what they're telling you not to do. Okay, now you know this, and so many others, as what I call the suicide tech. Now, after almost 20 years, it's an unfortunate title of it, but it's the self-destruct is the point. And once you see how self-destruction looks, you see it everywhere. It's almost instantaneous and I was taking notes like crazy, but I thought, man, I'd never seen it before. The light went on, and that was all it was necessary. Now, explaining how a thing self-destructs to someone else, that's a tactical task, and here's how we navigate that whole thing. But being able to see it, once I was shown, I got it. And this is, I think, happens a lot with RPL, and a lot of what we are doing at Stand to Reason. In everything we're doing, we're helping people to see it. Then the communication comes after. That's added after they see it.
Yeah. No, that's really good. It's so interesting because you hear like these common things, and now because we've been in this world for so long, someone says there is no truth. And at one point, that literally would have stumped me, and like when I was in my early university days, that kind of challenge for sure would have stumped me. And then when someone showed me that, wait a second, that's a truth claim. In fact, I was at Summit the other day, and there's a video I show now. I found it on social media. There's a guy, he's outside, he's got like this Bristol board on the ground. On one corner it says ghosts, and the other side says no ghosts. And he puts an object in the middle, and then it kind of slides over to no ghost. And then he's like, well, I'd be inclined to believe that it's like there's no ghost, but what moved the thing? So it's kind of like a self-refuting.
Yeah.
And we all laugh because you see it right away, right?
Yeah.
And
it's like how do you know there's no God? There's no God. How do you know? God told me.
Yeah, that's right.
Somebody
there's
actually
obvious
said that, by the way, Anyway, or the sign on the campus that says it's not wrong to think you're right. It's just not right to think others are wrong. Now, that's a little bit more complex, but of course, to think you're right just is to think that people who disagree with you are wrong. So this becomes a self-refuting kind of notion. That was an actual sign on a university campus. Like, these people ought to know better, but they don't. They are taken in by this nonsense, even though they're otherwise bright in other concerns. So.
And I think part of the thing is you can go through, at least in the public system, because I went through elementary school, middle school, high school, even university, getting a physics degree, never once taught about logical fallacies or what makes a good argument, what makes a bad argument, none of that stuff. It wasn't until I was doing a master's degree in philosophy that this stuff was introduced. Like, okay, now we'll give you philosophy and good thinking. Well, hold on a second. This stuff would have come in handy, years ago. And now, of course, when you have all these ideas that are on our devices, I mean, this is the number one place we're getting our beliefs from and our new ideas is where, oh man, I just saw so-and-so, some influencer make a claim or state their belief and didn't know even how to respond.
Did you see Harmony, who handles our social media stuff wonderfully, sent us all a notice of all these questions that people asked, different things that had different popularity. She was an analysis, so we can get an idea of trends. Now, I didn't look closely at it yet, because other things were vying for my attention. I want to look, but I think Amy sent a note about that and said, "Do you believe there's 118 people who asked something about Adam and Eve because they had been told that Adam and Eve were minority homeless people or something?" Transgender refugees. What? Where would anybody get that idea? But see, it seems to me this is an example of now a politically motivated meme pretending like it's really true, and then people who are gullible, which is a lot of people, because they don't know how to see through some nonsense, are taking it seriously. And so now this is gaining momentum, this idea. Just like your dinosaur thing. It's so nutty, but it's amazing what people will believe when they don't know how to think about these things.
Well, this speaks to the necessity of something like tactics, right? So what's my first response when I see these? Okay, I'm going to ask these questions, right? And my hope is that there's a place right alongside tactics for a resource that is now going to teach people how to think. Now there's some books out there, like the Fallacy Detective,
with the dog on the
that
front,
kind of
which
thing.
is fine.
Fine,
as
but
far as it goes.
like, is an 18-year-old going to read a book with a dog with a trench coat on the cover? No, probably not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, cartoon dog.
Yeah, a cartoon. What we need is something for, this generation that is dealing with the challenges of social media and all the stuff that they're going through in AI. How do we respond to those?
So, Mr. B,
hopefully there's something here.
Do you have a working title for this? Just curious. We got a minute and a half.
I'm thinking something like Red Pen Thinker, but
well, in your case,
see.
it'll be Red Pen Stinker. So we'll work on that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, and I don't have time for it because we're basically out of time. What use of AI then? And my suspicion is it has value. You just got to be really, really careful. To do your own thinking and your own independent research, not from ChatGPT, but from primary source documentation that's going to tell you what it was like or who was there and what they said and all this other stuff. And this is what we do together as a team with regards to all the issues we deal with, and then we're trying to figure it out. We're trying to know what we can count on. And we go back to the primary sources. We listen to people who know a thing or two, but we don't take that on so-called blind faith. We assess, we assess, we assess. And it doesn't mean we get everything right. But by golly, as long as I'm got my cleats on, we're not going to let a machine do our thinking for us. They can help us out a little bit. I just want to say thanks, Tim, for your magnificent contribution. RPL is just fabulous. Red Pen Logic. Go to YouTube, just type in Red Pen Logic and have a ball. And if you watch a couple of them, every time you open up YouTube, you're going to see Mr. B's face. He's done a great job with all his contribution. And by the way, he's hanging onto the rope that you are holding the other end of.
That's right. That's right.
And that's why being a strategic partner is so important. This month, str.org/partner, and be one of the 100 this August. Thanks so much, Tim. Got to say goodbye. It's it for the show this hour. More coming up. If you're on the line, stay on the line. We'll get to you. Greg Koukl here for Stand to Reason. Give 'em heaven. Bye-bye now.